All right, welcome to Buddy Book Club. I'm Dylan here with the gamer version of Grandpa Joe. Keith, what's up, buddy? You're sitting in bed, but you're playing like Dota or something like that.
They're just swingers, right? They're in the bed together, right? They're just swinging.
Quit burning the good stuff early. Let's talk about that later.
That's how you suck them in, and that's how they suck them in, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
I mean, what?
It's a children's book. Here at the Buddy Book Club, we're going to break it down some bestsellers, and this week we'll be discussing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or reach out to us about past episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs on Twitter or TikTok. Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, so please download and subscribe. Before you get into your Taboo 2, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 416 on Goodreads. Honestly, I think that's a little low. Published in 1964. Supposedly, it was inspired by Dahl's life as a kid around chocolate factories, which I guess is a thing in England. And supposedly, the Cadbury factory would test out new chocolates on local school children. So you'd be at school and they'd say, yeah, here's some new candies. And that was part of the idea. And this whole, like, kind of like the subtext throughout the book, that there's people spying on him and trying to steal his stuff, is a real thing. So between chocolate factories, that was like, stealing recipes or stealing ideas was a big thing. All of that ended up inspiring this book. I actually had a professor in college, and the guy, great plan, because college classes, usually it's like twice a week. So you'd have to do readings in between, whatever. But the first class of the week was the stuff you'd learn. And then the second class, which was usually on a Friday, he would either do Jeopardy or Family Feud. And it would be all of the talking points that you had discussed throughout the week.
This is my kind of teacher. I love that.
And the best part of it was he had a buddy that worked for one of the candy companies, and he'd always have these test candies that were coming out. And the winning group got to try the test candies, like got to have them. And the only thing you had to do was like report back on whether you liked it or not, or what you didn't like about it, whatever the case was. It wasn't like sour Skittles, but it was one of those newer types of Skittles came out. And we were trying them. No one else has these, and I fucking love Skittles. So it was great. Or coffee M&Ms. They didn't exist before. It was pretty cool, and that's what I imagine Roald Dahl was doing as a child. Keith, let's get into the rest of the categories, and we'll talk about the book as we do it. Stock up, stock down. Stock up for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. What do you got?
Unethical testing, stock up. Unethical animal testing, I'm against. We're not for that here at the Buddy Book Club.
No, absolutely not.
However, we talk about unethical testing on Oompa Loompas, a.k.a. drug-riddled creatures that are addicted to the cocoa bean, that you can do whatever you want to them and manipulate them because of their hardcore addictions. I'm for that, No, don't ask any questions about that. Don't worry about that at all. Just point at them and laugh and say, oh, look at them tell their little funny stories. And here's another little bump of cocoa that, so you can keep doing all these things. But he was just saying that he's like, yeah, we just test these things out on the Oompa Loompas, but we're paying them okay, so that's fine. We can do whatever we want to them. It seems a little bit questionable.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Killers of the Flower Moon when they were talking about Native Americans and them having their oil rights. And the oil rights were supposed to give you cash, but instead the government was just like giving them food instead. And they were like, we kind of want cash. But this is pretty much the deal with the Oompa Loompas. They're just getting paid in cocoa, which is addictive.
And cocaine's made from that too, right?
I don't think so, no. But chocolate is, so we got caffeine in there. I mean, there's definitely addictive properties to it.
They're fiends. I mean, that's the fact of the matter, right? That's it.
Yeah, and he's talking about the everlasting gum or whatnot. He was like, yeah, we tested it on 20 Oompa Loompas, and they all turned into blueberries, so, moving on. So, well, all right.
A few of them died, but it's not human, so we don't care.
Yeah.
The other thing would be tough for them is just working in a factory and just seeing... It'd be like being an alcoholic at a bar. There's a rivers of chocolate going by you all day, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, you're just probably like itching for it all day.
Yeah. What if there's like some bad Oompa Loompa workers, and he's just withholding their drugs from them?
Those are the ones that he's doing all those tests to. They won't be missed, You step at a line, and all of a sudden you're getting shot through a TV screen and becoming a commercial or whatever. It happened to the TV kid there.
Yeah, Mike TV. My first stock up is the phrase, fuck around and find out.
Nice.
So I feel like it's a pretty new phrase, but it also seems to be the theme of the book. right? Because Augustus, you want to cunnilingus the chocolate stream? Fuck around and find out, buddy. And he does.
I like drinking or tasting is now lingusing.
Well, it said he was, lapping it up with his tongue in a dog-like fashion. So I drew my own conclusions.
Gotta teach him young.
Yeah. Veruca wants a squirrel, so she goes and tries to take one. Fuck around and find out, Veruca. And, the squirrels end up tossing her down the drain. I think it's really a life lesson in there. And maybe the reason why the phrase came about. I kind of wish at the end, when Charlie was the only one left, Willy's like, you want to fuck around and find out? Charlie's like, I'm all set, thanks. And he's like, cool, you got the chocolate factory. That's all we needed. A kid that's got his head on his shoulders. So yeah, that's my first stock up.
I did think it was kind of crazy or kind of interesting how they reimagined this into the movie, because Willy was definitely not trying to promote them. Where in the movie, I feel like he was like, yeah, do it. See what happens. Maybe I'm misremembering that, but I kind of thought Willy wasn't the nicest dude in the movie, where in the book, no, he did everything he could. He kept on being like, don't do these things, and then they just do them.
Yeah, so they definitely took a different angle because I watched the movie today just because I was sitting around and wanted to.
I haven't seen it forever, but I remembered it. I remember being scary, honestly.
Some parts are. Like the whole Slugworth stuff was weird. And then at the end, it's like, oh, that wasn't Slugworth. That guy works for me, it all just didn't make a lot of sense. But we were talking about making YouTube videos and whatnot. I actually cut the Willy Wonka clips because a bunch of times whenever someone's going to do something, Wonka's like, no, don't do it. Like legitimately like that. Like, oh, no, don't do that. Where in the book, he's like, no, guys, definitely don't do that. Like, really don't do that. Right. And they just go and do it anyways.
He's like, we have Oompa Loompas to do that. We can take advantage of them, not you guys.
What else do you have for stock up?
I already mentioned it briefly there, but TV commercials stock up. I feel like the TV commercial technology that's talked about in this book, it honestly just makes too much sense to me.
Maybe I missed that part or something. What can you explain that?
He was like, what we're trying to do is, he kind of used an analogy of like, hey, right now you can send out radio waves and shoot things through satellites, and we catch them and we are able to transmit that into what you're listening to right now, or to TV, or to whatever it is. With that logic, eventually we'll be able to send out physical things and catch them, you'll turn them into whatever, right? So that's how he was able to shoot him through the TV or whatever. And then, so basically the TV commercial in the future, and again, I don't know how we haven't made this yet, is that you see a Snickers bar in the TV and you just put your hand through and grab the Snickers and pull it out. So it just shoots it through there, which, can you tell me why we wouldn't be able to do that? I feel like it makes too much sense.
Like rematerialize matter in a different place?
Yeah.
Isn't this in like a bunch of movies and stuff where they try to do that? Like The Fly. It's kind of like The Fly, right?
I don't know what that is.
The movie The Fly with Jeff Goldblum, where he tries to It's a great movie, by the way. Like,
I like how you mentioned like The Fly or some weird like 1990s terrible movie, and then I bring up a phenomenal movie, and you're like, that movie sucked, terrible.
I think The Fly's from like early 80s, but basically you get into a capsule, and wherever the other capsule is, your body gets transported there. But Jeff Goldblum,
like Star Trek almost.
Yeah, exactly. But Jeff Goldblum is testing it on himself and doesn't realize that there's also a fly that came in with him, so their DNAs get cross-mogenated.
That sounds like such a terrible movie, but okay, yeah, totally.
It's not bad. I mean, they made a second one. I didn't see it, but
okay.
Yeah. My second stock up, and it might be controversial, but the Oompa Loompas.
That's the stock up, Oompa Loompas?
Yeah,
okay,
because
go on.
I liked this version of the Oompa Loompas better than the movie version. They're like a foot tall, or like the children are like 4 inches. They have animal skin. They have animal skins. They do a lot of wisecracking at the kids. I mean, like, their wisecracking is way worse than what's in the movie. The movie's more like song and dance, where they do have these songs in the book. They're almost like diss tracks. It's like 50 Cent and Ja Rule kind of situation. And the Oompa Loompas in the book, they represent live, laugh, love. They're there for it all. They're living, they're laughing, and they're loving. But I do have to say that it's controversial because there does seem to be a significant race component to it. Supposedly, Dahl was basing it on like pygmies, like the pygmy people, which is like probably not chill.
Who are the pygmy people? Sorry.
They're just like a group of people that are diminutive, small, tribal people. And when the movie was coming out, the publishing company was like, no, we can't do this. And there was kind of an uproar. And so they went back and changed a lot of the book. I think the one I listened to was the original because they took out a bunch of the stuff about them wearing animal skins and some of the other
interesting
race type stuff. I mean, they also additionally took out a lot of the fat shaming stuff, which we'll get into later. Outside of that, I just thought these Oompa Loompas just being like super small was kind of fun. Like the idea of there was 100 of them rowing his boat and like 10 Oompa Loompas to an oar kind of situation. I just thought it lended to a fun visual.
In the movie, I think it's funny when they roll through, sing a quick little jab, Oompa Loompa, da-da-da-da. In this one, they run out, they give the Gettysburg Address. They're literally talking for like 20 minutes. I'm punting one of these fuckers if my son just almost got killed. In the movie, it makes sense because they kind of like come at you real quick. You don't see them. In this book, they're just talking forever. I'd just be like, yo, shut up. What are you doing?
I would also just like to comment that the Gettysburg Address was notoriously extremely short. So,
first of all, would you just say notoriously and get out of here?
It wasn't a long address. It was a quick one. It was short and to the point, which is why it's so famous because it wasn't like these long-winded. No, back then they would have these like hour-long speeches, and he went up there, gave a short speech, kind of went like nobody enjoyed that, and walked away, and then it became historic.
Let me read this real quick for you. While it is Lincoln's short speech that has gone down in history as one of the finest examples of English public speaking, Everett's oration that was slated to be the Gettysburg Address that day, now seldom read, oration was 13,607 words long and lasted 2 hours.
That's the other guy who talked. There was more.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. There's a couple of addresses.
No, you're not talking about some friggin' random guy's Gettysburg Address. You're talking about Lincoln's.
Listen, kid, it was 2 hours, okay?
Yeah, so that guy went up and talked for 2 hours, and then Lincoln stands up, talks for 5 minutes, and people were
okay,
like,
what was the other guy's one called? Where was it at? Was
it
at
no
Gettysburg? Was it at Gettysburg? I mean, was he addressing people? Case solved, sir.
Point taken. Just quickly, I think we have to say factories stock up. In general, factories not that cool. In this book, factories very cool.
Yeah.
Seems simple.
And they're taking advantage of the factory workers like usual. So yeah, totally.
Yeah, this is standard.
Yeah, that's part of the course.
I had a question mark because I wasn't sure about this one, but savory chewing gum, are you in as a stock up or are you out?
Hard pass.
Really?
Hard pass. I think that would be something that maybe like marathon runners or someone would use, right? Where you just like need salt.
Yeah,
right?
like the quench gum.
Yeah.
This gum was tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie. I think I'd be Jamal set on the tomato soup portion, but roast beef into a blueberry pie, I could fuck around and find out.
I think they're trying to kill the whole food industry with that, though. He's like, all you'll need is this one thing.
Yeah. You know, maybe we would all just get eating disorders because it's so delicious. Like tonight, I'd be like, oh, what do we want to cook for dinner? And she'd be like, do we really want to cook? Like, shouldn't we just have some roast beef dinnered gum? Sit there, watch a movie, eat some roast beef dinner gum, both tap each other on the shoulder when we get to the blueberry pie section? Yeah. Maybe. Let's jump into stock down. What do you got?
Well, in line with that, stock down capitalism.
Oh.
Willy, let me tell you something about business here, Willy, real quick. You can't make things that are everlasting. He wanted to, like, everlasting gum, like you're mentioning, replace all meals, and, like, ice cream that doesn't melt, and things that don't go bad. All this stuff he wants to create. Ever heard of recurring revenues, bud? Like, what are we doing? Where's Steven Jobs when you need him? Bring him down here. Why release the best iPhone ever? Why not just release 15 different versions and have the other ones break really quickly so you have to buy the new one? That's what you need to do. Do you not appreciate capitalism? That's the whole point. It's to just make shit fall apart quickly so they have to repurchase from you. That's the America I know. That's the capitalism I love. And Willy Wonka, frankly, might just be a communist. That's what I'm hearing. So I don't hate that the government was trying to go in there and people are trying to steal from him because he's a communist, kid, and we can't have it. Stock down capitalism.
I think he was in on it with Big Dental. Because he says about the everlasting gobstopper, he's like, definitely don't bite on it. Like, if you bite on it, your teeth are going to shatter. But it's everlasting. So if everyone's, like, always has a gobstopper in, then eventually people are going to be like, I can bite down on this. I mean, we've all been there with candies, like a Tootsie Pop or something like that.
Also, you're just going to be constantly sucking on sugar forever.
Yeah,
so
that's
I think
also
that'd be
true.
worse.
Yeah.
That's probably why your teeth are going to get destroyed.
But both of them. So the sugar slowly dissolves your enamel, and then you take a little bite just to test it. Shattered.
He is a big capitalist. He's investing heavily in the dental market right now.
Yeah, exactly. They might spend $100 a year on gobstoppers if they weren't everlasting, but now if you get an everlasting one for $1, but then the dental visits, that's like $400 a year combined.
Yeah. This is like handing out free packs of cigarettes to kids back in the day, you know?
Yeah, or when they gave them to GIs in World War II and everyone came back addicted.
Yeah. That's a really good move.
My first stock down, and we've kind of been talking about this, but I held off on mine for now, is unions, the labor movement, because Oompa Loompas are perfectly happy. And so I don't think we necessarily need unions. Yeah, Wonka went and took them out of their native land and brought them to this factory where they can't leave. No one goes in, no one goes out.
Pro-slavery, it sounds like.
And I mean, they're dancing around, having a blast. Like, there's no one just drowning in the chocolate pool. You know, maybe testing the gum, using them as test subjects, not the best. But they got the room and board. They got everything they need. They're not having to fight the snorkelockles and the wangdingers. If they unionized, maybe there wouldn't be enough space for all of them because they'd be needing to get paid a certain amount.
D-Man the Union Buster. Okay, noted. All
right.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm just throwing it out there. What else you got for stock down?
I think we're all on the same kind of page here, but stock down HR departments. Once again, I'm rallying against HR departments. You know, I've been a long battle for me, and not for my company. My company has great ones. I'm just joking. This is a joke podcast here if you're listening. And I'm not talking about the Oompa Loompas. I'm not talking about the incoming lawsuits that they'll get from all these kids' families.
No, they signed off. They signed an NDA.
I don't think that's going to work. I think there's some negligence or whatever that overrides those documents that can be sued on. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about the fact that Willie goes to the HR department and says, hey, I'm about to pass my business down. This is my baby. Down to the most deserving kid. Someone that is hardworking, understands the importance of continuing the legacy of this place. Someone that embodies what this company stands for. And they're like, okay, what we'll do is create a lottery where only the richest people can come in here. The people that don't care about chocolate, the people that aren't hardworking, don't give a shit about anything, they don't even really care about being here. All they care about is their individual things. We'll bring those people in. That will be the most qualified people. They're all very lucky that Charlie was able to pull that ticket, because otherwise it'd be all pieces of shit there. All rich people. I guess this lottery system is just like life, but still, what the fuck, HR department? Do a better job than this.
It's an interesting point for the overall story, because we either have to believe that there was some sort of like fate involved with Charlie finding the ticket, or that there was potentially a plant and the shopkeeper who gave Charlie the chocolate bar was a plant by Wonka to maybe give the last golden ticket to the most deserving local kid, because it's the the hometown of the factory. Maybe find the most deserving kid, save that one, and give it to him.
Oh, like the store guy was, you think?
Yeah, like the shopkeeper. I'm not saying that that's what happened. It seems to me, though, it's either one of those two options, right? It's either fate brought them there, or Wonka had this whole thing planned. He's got it all figured out. So I don't think he's giving up his baby and all the rights to the Oompa Loompas' lives to Veruca Salt.
But still, you're still giving yourself one person then? All the other tickets were spoken for, and they're like, oh, everything rests on this one person.
He wanted to fuck with the rest of those kids.
Oh,
like so he was like...
That's why I think this would be a great horror story, where this guy's like, I'm going to give my factory away, but really he's just a sadistic fuck that just like bringing people here just to fuck with them.
There is a couple movies like that, and I can't remember what they are. There's some old ones that got remade, but basically like, I'm going to give away my fortune, show up at my mansion, one of you's going to get it, and like people die, stuff like that. But this one, I think he hadn't been seen by the world. He'd gotten a little crazy, just him hanging out with the Oompa Loompas, eating chocolate all the time, and decided he wanted to fuck with some kids. So he decided to do that. And then he was like, but I'm actually going to give it away. So I need one kid that's good. So scoured the town, found that one, made sure the local shopkeeper gave him that candy bar. That's my theory.
Okay. I don't hate that take, honestly. Yeah, that's not bad.
My next stock down is body positivity. We should all be positive about our bodies and not fat shame. Everyone's different and whatnot. But Roald Dahl out here fat shaming left and right. Augustus, the shopkeeper who we just talked about, who sells Charlie the winning ticket, Dahl goes on length to describe the shopkeeper's goiter. Like, the fat around his neck looked like an inflatable tire. Like, he goes on for pages about this, and it's a short book. So give the guy a break. Maybe he's got a glandular issue. Also, the shopkeeper was one of the nicest people in the whole book, telling Charlie to slow down on the chocolate, but also when Charlie wants more chocolate, he's like, yeah, no problem at all. And then when he pulls the ticket, he's like, get out of here, like saves him from the crowd and whatnot. Just seemed like an all-around nice guy. I'm not sure what the take was here by Dahl with all this fat shaming. I mean, the songs around Augustus and all the talk around him was just how
the Gettysburg Address, if you will.
Yeah, the first guy's Gettysburg Address. And interestingly enough, a bunch of that was taken out in the later versions. Like, they don't... It's like he's a heavy boy, not like, oh my God, he's so incredibly fat.
There's a lot of similarities to Harry Potter. And Harry Potter, his family is all...
Dudley Dursley.
Yeah, all fat. The other thing I think is it's supposed to just represent haves and have not. Now people can be poor and be super fat, whereas back then, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. Back then it was like, you're just overeating. Now it's like, we're getting fed such shit that you could be overweight by accident. Or it can be piece of shit like me.
It used to be a sign of wealth and opulence, like you were attracted to the heavier folks, and now it's gone the opposite way. But it's interesting you said that about the Dursleys, because J.K. Rowling said that she really loved this book as like a top 10 children's book of all time.
Oh, really? Okay.
And Slugworth is the bad guy in this one, and then there's also Slughorn in Harry Potter, which is interesting. And then, like you said, Dudley just seems a lot like Augustus, and he's treated by his parents very similarly to the way the Dursleys do. Yeah. All right. Like that. So I was wondering what your favorite non-death death was between Mike TV, Veruca Salt. We got Augustus Gloop.
The squirrel one.
That was Veruca.
The squirrel one I thought was just, it was nice because it was multi-facet. Like, the other one is like, oh, it's funny he can't go up the tubes because he's fat, which is like, all right, that's a layup.
Yeah.
The squirrels can check if there's anything in there, like, to see how good it is, and then being like, nah, there's a bad nut. It's a little double meaning, a little double entendre without the sexual part, but, well, get a nut. Anyways.
Oh, Jesus. I was like, why does a double entendre have to be sexual? Got it. No,
doesn't it have to be?
No, I don't think so.
I'll fact check you again, kid. The Gettysburg Address.
A double entendre does not have to be sexual, right? Can it just mean... I
think it's based off of
Shakespeare.
Shakespeare.
It just mean two things?
A word or phrase that is open to two interpretations, one in which is usually risque or indecent. Get at me, kid. Get at me. Anywho, what was I saying?
You were sexualizing children somehow. I don't know what path you went down.
I'm not the one that's doing that.
Double entendres. You double entendres. Veruca Salt. By the way, the other one was Violet Beauregard. She was the one that turned into the blueberry.
What about you?
I leaned towards Mike TV just because it was so absurd. And we were kind of talking about the way that they explained how TV works. Just the whole way of him going into the TV thing and whatnot, that part was absurd. I thought the explanation of how TV works might have been the best explanation of anything I've ever heard. It was so straightforward and to the point, and
that's why I was like, it makes sense.
Yeah, dumbed down for someone to my intellect. That, and I don't even know if it's true or not, but I was like, oh, that must be how TV works. Like, that's genius. But in terms of his non-death death, I thought that one was maybe the best. I agree with you with the Augustus one. Like, oh, he's stuck in the pipe. Like, I felt bad for him actually a little bit. And then getting turned into a blueberry, whatever. And then the other one with your girl, Veruca Salt, was like terrible. They were like, oh, she's going to go into the trash heap, which is full of fish heads and all this stuff. I was like, Jesus. Mike TV was just so crazy. He was like, all right, when he comes out, he's 1 inch tall. Like, they got him back, but he's an inch tall. And they're like, oh, we can stretch him out with the gum stretcher or whatnot. And then they see him later from the glass elevator, and he's 11 feet tall with like fingers for toes. And they're like, oh, he's going to be a great basketball player. It's like, this is a Wemby.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, the guy from the Spurs.
Yeah, this is Wemby. Wemby is Mike TV. Let's jump into some love-hate. Keith, what'd you love?
Just a quick read. I think I told you I did it in 2 sittings. This I turned it on, got halfway through, and I was like upset that I had to stop. And then the next time I was like, oh, I got to finish this. Like, we're not fucking around here. Buck the trend of usually like the 20 or 30 minute listen, and it was just 2 hour-and-a-half listens. So really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a short book. It's a 3-hour and something. It felt like there was a full story, right? And I mean, even in general, there's like an hour and a half almost was like the first half of the book. They're not even in the Willy Wonka's factory yet. It's just about Charlie and his family. And I thoroughly enjoyed that part of the story. I thought it was an interesting story itself. There was funny parts to it, all like these other kids finding the stuff and just the craze going on around society, trying to find all the Wonka golden tickets. Him and his grandparents, who they must have terrible bed sores. I mean, they haven't left the bed in 20 years. Like not only the bed sores.
Oh, they're moving around, kid. What, is that a double entendre or no?
Yeah, that is. There you go. I mean, there's so much to break down in there because if they're not leaving the bed, how are the sheets getting changed? Are they all rolling, and then I can believe that. But then, how are they using the bathroom?
Is this a love of yours, by the way? I had that as my hate. I was like, I want the book to explain this way more. You could give me another hour of like the bed dynamics. I just needed to know what's going on.
Yeah, I didn't have it on anything. It was more of my lingering questions. What does it all smell like?
Ugh.
They're eating cabbage soup for dinner. Have you ever boiled a cabbage? Don't get me wrong. I love all sorts of things cabbage, but it just has this gross boiled cabbage scent to it. I don't know. So everything in that house just must have smelled terrible. No, that was not my love. My love was chapter titles, which is something that I've kind of forgot existed because we've only been reading adult books. I don't understand why they're only in kids books because they're with Harry
Potter too. Yeah, this book was a lot of Harry Potter similarities here.
Crushes them with that. And then these ones are fun too. And I just love them in general because when you're reading in bed at night or whatever the case is, you kind of get to a chapter and you're like, oh, this is a good stopping point. But you don't really know what's going to happen in the next chapter, so you just stop. When you're a kid and you're reading a book, it's like Augustus Gloop goes up the pipe. You see that, and it's like, maybe I'll do one more chapter because that sounds pretty wild. I think we need to bring this back in terms of the adult books. Like Christian Grey straps one on. It's like, I think I'm good. Like I think I'm good to just not read.
Finally got to the chapter I wanted.
Yeah, I just love the chapter titles. I miss those. What else you got?
I just thought of when you were talking earlier, but this did spawn one of the best Family Guy episodes I've ever seen. I only really watched the first 3 or 4 seasons of Family Guy.
Yeah, okay.
Saw it sporadically.
I had the DVDs.
He gets the golden ticket and he's like, run, Peter, run home as fast as you can. And he runs home and then hits his knee on the pavement on the way back. And he goes, yeah. I was laughing so much on that.
Honestly, the first 2 seasons of Family Guy, I'm a huge Simpsons guy, and they were like revolutionary.
I also thought watching the movie, I watched the movie like 10 times as a kid, but the book, I was enjoying it the whole time. Usually I don't really want to read a book that I've seen the movie for a bunch because you're not going to really add to it. Looked at Jurassic Park, which I didn't like. But this, I was like, no, this is awesome. This is a great addition to it. It's a cool little take on it. So I was a fan.
It was interesting that they changed some of this stuff, like the squirrel scene with, your girl Veruca. They changed in the movie to like a goose that lays the golden egg. I don't know why they did that, because when they remade the movie with Johnny Depp, they brought back the squirrel scene. There was like no CGI. They actually trained 1,000 squirrels to crack nuts or whatever the case was. Like people can look it up exactly what happened. I've seen it once, I feel like, and it was weird. Granted, the movie, the older one with Gene Wilder as Wonka, who's a phenomenal Wonka, I thought was really good. And it stuck to the story a good amount. There was just like a few things they omitted and changed. Obviously, they changed the Oompa Loompas. We all know why. And the songs were obviously way different because the songs in the book aren't necessarily songs. They're more like poems. I don't know.
They're pretty long.
Yeah. And I agree with you, really, for My Other Love is just like the story itself. It was such a creative world and just making up. It just blows me away when people can have these ideas in their heads and make up these words for creatures and all sorts of stuff that somehow makes sense, even though it's all ridiculous gibberish.
Well, when he mentions the testing rooms, those are just throw-ins to add to the lore. They're like, oh, and here's like the 50 different testing rooms they have, and you just list them all out. I'm like, you could have made a story on each one of these rooms by itself.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how long did it take? It's almost one of those things when you see like a small detail in a movie they talk to the director about, and he's like, oh, this took us 4 days to film. Oh, that's how committed they are to their craft. It's like, all the different rooms, like you said, it's just like this tiny little piece of the book, but coming up with all of that stuff was great. What'd you hate?
I already went over. We needed more background on the grandparents' sleeping situation. We already we talked about that. I didn't really get the ending, honestly. They just take off in like a rocket ship that like, or a helicopter or something, and they land on their house.
Glass elevator.
I mean, it's a pretty good technology. It's the first time he launches it, and he was just like, "Yeah, this will work. This will be fine."
It'll go through the very thick glass roof. Yep.
And then he just like flies over to his house, crashes into the house, and he's like, "You're coming with me." The thing is, Willy Wonka retired to go to NASA, right? That's the only thing that makes sense because this book was released in 1964. We haven't landed on the moon until 1969, allegedly. And then, so he did just retire and go to NASA to help us like with our space program because this obviously technology is way higher than anything we had at the time.
I agree. He became Von Braun from October Sky, who's the rocket scientist. They got him out of England during the Blitz. They brought him back. He made a chocolate A-bomb, blew up Japan, and then went on to fly to the moon. And that's actually where the next book comes into play, because the next book, Charlie and the Glass Elevator, they go to the moon and see aliens, I think. I think that's what happens in the book. I'm pretty sure that's what happens in the book.
That's a quite the departure.
Yeah, I agree that it was kind of weird when all of a sudden it's like, oh, how do we get them out of bed? It's like, I'm just going to crash through the roof. It's like, those beams and stuff, those are pretty heavy. Like, they're just going to, like, that book could have ended a totally different way where Wonka just goes and does that. All of a sudden, Grandpa George and Grandma Georgette are just, vaporized when he's like, sorry, I really haven't driven this elevator very much. That was my bad. It was also a little confusing when he was saying they're going to bring the whole family, but he's like, oh, my mom's going to have to stay because she's going to have to take care of my other grandparents. But Grandpa Joe is standing next to him, like his wife is still stuck in bed, and Joe's like, "No, I'm good. I'm living in the factory. Like, my daughter or daughter-in-law can take care of my wife until her dying days. I'm gonna go live with the Oompa Loompas. I'm gonna get a Loompa wife." For my hates, I really didn't have much. I love Roald Dahl books, as we kind of talked about at the end of the last podcast. I don't think this is my favorite of his. I mean, it's definitely not. It'd probably be Matilda, and then James and the Giant Peach, and then BFG, and then Boy. That would probably be my list. Fantastic Mr. Fox. Don't have a ton of memories about it, but I just love his storytelling. And unfortunately, both of us listened to the audiobook because in the book itself, the illustrator who does a bunch of his books has a really fun children's type drawing. Like, they're not advanced drawings. Like, they're almost like stick figure-y type stuff with like silly hair and stuff. But for some reason it works. And all of them are great films. So, which is crazy because usually they all miss. But I think from all of my memories as a child, Witches was good. I've seen Matilda again recently. Phenomenal. Danny DeVito, you're a godsend. Thank you for everything you did there. And James and the Giant Peach, also great. Claymation. Do you have any other hates?
Last one quick is just, I'm pretty sure I watched this movie like 10 times because my parents wanted to drill into the fact that you're lucky to have 3 square meals a day, and if you go against your parents, then you'll turn into all the other rotten kids in it. Yeah, I feel like the word rotten was used a lot in my household.
Was it? Interesting.
Yeah, that was like you're spoiled rotten. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's why I think I watched it so many times, because it basically is like, yeah, these kids deserved it. Like, they talked back.
Your
and
parents are just like peeling your eyelids back, and just rewinding and replaying, like Veruga Salt going down the drain. Like, yeah. Ooh, yeah. Keith, if you don't eat your broccoli, you'll turn into Augustus Gloop.
Right, exactly. So it worked.
Yeah.
You've got mail.
Jill from Scottsdale. If you could have one candy upgraded or any candy invented by Willy Wonka, what would it be? I would have the perfect, this isn't really candy, but just in general, the perfect caramel created, which would be not caramel.
Sure.
One that doesn't stick to your teeth, not too soft, not too hard, and it would somehow be healthy also. I don't know how that works, but it'd just be perfect, and also I could eat it whenever. The next thing onto that is that it all comes also in like a ketchup bottle, and just like, it's just at tables, instead of sugar, every single time you add sugar, instead, it's just caramel. Because I looked it up. I thought caramel, honestly, was like from some plant or something. Do you know what it's made of?
Yeah, I've made some caramel in my day.
Oh, have you? Okay. It's just sugar, heavy cream, and butter, which is all amazing. 3 amazing things. I didn't realize that's what made it. But think about this, though. Is there anything that is worse when you add caramel versus sugar? Like, if you add a coffee and you add caramel to it, way better than sugar.
Well, caramel is, in essence, just caramelized sugar. It creates hundreds of thousands of more amino acid flavors that are absolutely delicious.
So healthy. Okay, perfect.
Definitely not healthy. But yeah, I actually have my girl, the Smitten Kitchen. Y'all can look up that on the Instagram. She makes a delightful apple cider caramel, which 'tis the season. And I usually make a few batches of those in the fall and then put them in the freezer. So we always have them. So I also have been known to make a caramel ice cream, which is quite nice. So
Okay.
I'm leaning towards something that Wonka had already created, but I'd want to try, which is the ice cream that doesn't melt, because that's right up my alley. I love ice cream. It's my number one. That's my go-to.
What about the brain freeze situation?
Never happens to me.
Really?
I have, but it's usually with like a slushy or something like that, like a Richie's Italian slush.
But isn't the whole reason you get brain freezes is because like you're eating it too fast and it's too cold? So like if it goes into your body and stays cold, wouldn't you just get it much easier?
I think, and don't hold me to this, but I'm almost certain it's because the cold reacting with the roof of your mouth, it like signals something to your brain. They say that how to get rid of brain freeze is if you have it to like push your tongue to the roof of your mouth to like normalize the heat level.
Pro tip. Yeah.
But
look up the Nick Swartzen bit on that, by the way. Great bit.
But yeah, so any sort of ice cream that could last, or if there was, like a Snickers ice cream. Have you ever had those Snickers
Can I
ice
ask
cream
a
bars?
second question now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm very curious why this would you want this. Are you running into a lot of issues with your ice cream melting? Like, where is this a big problem for you?
So I like to savor ice cream.
Okay.
If I have a bowl, I want to eat it slowly with a very small spoon. I really like to savor it, unless obviously you're like out at an ice cream shop, you got a cone. But even then with the cone, it's dripping all over your hands. It'd be nice in the summer if you just had an ice cream cone and you could just walk around. And like when you want to take a lick, you could take a lick. The ice cream's dictating to me how fast I have to eat it. I want to dictate to the ice cream how fast I want to eat.
That's why I'm a fan of Ben and Jerry pints, because I pull one of those out really, really hard. You have to work for it, right? Especially like the ones with chunks and stuff in it. And once it starts melting, I'm like, I don't want this anymore, and put it away. So it's like almost like a deterrent, right? So I know when to stop. Whereas if it just stayed cold the whole time, there's no chance I'm not finishing the whole thing. So I almost don't want your invention, honestly.
Well, because with the Ben & Jerry's, I've kind of worked around that myself. You get a cold kitchen towel, cold water on it.
This is next level.
You get a kitchen towel with cold water on it. You wrap it around the pint, and then you put it in the freezer. And then when you want to eat it, you take it out, and that towel is now like an insulator for the cold of the ice cream, and you wrap it around again.
You have mittens on?
Well,
You're wearing mittens in order to eat it?
You can use mittens, but I just wrap it around again with another kitchen towel.
That's such next level. I've never heard anything like that.
Yeah, and then you can sit there for however long you want. That's my own version of Willy Wonka's. So
that's the most insane request you could have any candy or anything made. And you're like, I just want, because I eat too much ice cream, I want it to be colder.
Actually, I thought yours was a great one because caramel is my top
It's
two.
too variable. That's the problem.
Yeah, like I had a Twix the other day and I was like, shit, this caramel is just not good. 100 grand, a little bit better. 100 grand's a little bit better. If you've ever never had a Millionaire Shortbread bar, you should try one of those. It's not a real thing, but like you have to bake it, but it's delicious.
I really do think the Ghirardelli squares have to be in the refrigerator. Are the best. I've been trying a lot, but I think that they're the best. I tried it in the freezer, by the way, too, and it wasn't as good as the fridge. Fridge is the perfect temperature.
Yeah. Also, people that don't want to make their own caramel, you can take a can of sweetened condensed milk, put it in some simmering water for like 3 hours. When you take it out, it's caramel. It's like the best caramel you've ever had. It's like dulce de leche caramel. I don't know how it works, but it basically like caramelizes what's inside of it in the can. So take that pro tip while you have it.
I like it.
All right, Keith, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Would you recommend it to other listeners and other folks?
For sure. Yeah, I definitely recommend it. I like how this episode has gone about a third of the book length, so I think that speaks to the fact that we liked it. I thought it compared very similarly, yeah, that word, to Holes, which is in the top 10 for me. I don't think it's as good as Holes. I think Holes is better just because I like the timeline jumping. I'm a big fan of stories that combine.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a top book. It's a really good kids book. Probably the number 2 kids book we've read, I would say. So yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Oh, great.
How about you?
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, this is, like I said, grew up on it. Reading it to your kid or something like that, this would be a fun book for that. especially, kids imaginative. It's like, oh, what's that? Just fun stuff.
Do you think the writing was better than 50 Shades of Grey?
What? 1,000,000,000%. That's like not even in the same stratosphere. Yeah.
I love it.
Like the writing was at like a 5th grade level, and the writing in 50 Shades is at a 3rd grade level as long as you know how to spell penis. Like ridiculous, that book.
Yeah.
Terrible. What do we got coming up?
We have Separation of Power by Vince Flynn coming up next. Back to the Vince Flynn series.
Back to some Mitch Rapp. And if you're wondering what number it is in the series, here's the thing. It doesn't matter. That's the best part about Vinny Flynn. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so we got Vinny Flynn coming up. Maybe a holiday book. Maybe we should do a holiday book for the Christmas season. We'll figure that one out. But Keith, anyways, glad to get back to our reading level here with some Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I'll catch you next week for some Vinny Flynn.
Alrighty.
All right.
Bye now.